I just pop in here to say hello and then I'm going to disappear. But nice to meet everyone. So tonight, this is presented by Alberta Homeschooling Association, and we're going to cover a few of the options that are available for parents this fall. I know since the announcement was made that children are going back to school, it has a lot of parents panicky, and we were thinking, well, you know what? It's not that you have to teach. You can do a lot more than what you probably think you can do. Okay, so we're going to run through this. I have quite a lot of slides here, but I want to leave lots of time for your questions. So we're not going to, I'm not going to explain. I'm going to skip over a few of these slides, okay? Yay. Okay, so this is me, and I'm just going to turn my video off because it sometimes is very distracting. Here we go. Okay, this is me. I am an education consultant, and I work. My field is child development and brain development and positive family and parenting practices. So I think it's a nice mesh with education because both parts, parenting and education, also are very much connected to the brain. And we're going to talk about that tonight too. I am a best-selling author. I've written several books on non-punitive parenting, and also they've been translated, and also my latest one on unschooling, which I will explain tonight to you. I have a Facebook page called Unschooling STEM, and if you want to come visit me at my blog, I have a blog called Unschooling to University. And I also have a parenting blog, which I kind of keep separate. That is right here. So we love teachers. We love learning. What's happening now is our system is being disrupted, and it can be disrupted at any point this fall. That was made very clear, is that this is the plan, but the plan may be changed at any time. So just be aware of that. We want to make sure everybody knows that children learn in many ways. They don't just learn at school. This was from the province-wide talks in 2011 when they asked where people learn, where children learn. And you can see here school is only one of several places that people learn, or children learn too. This summer, I've been fascinated, and this spring, watching the headlines in the media about homeschooling. And many of the headlines are, oh, it's a nightmare, it's stressful, I'm completely failing. And it really brought home the knowledge that parents have had 170 years of school, which is really the new kid on the block. For thousands of years, parents have taught their children fine, but it's really brought home how our media has chipped away at the confidence and self-esteem of parents to be able to teach their own children. Or not just teach, just to handle their education procurement. And you can see it in the headlines here. And we need more messages saying, you can do it. You have everything you need. You homeschool these children from the time they're born to the time they're 5 years old, and you can keep going. So let's be clear. Education nowadays is never about where the learning takes place. It's all about who controls it. So you control your child's education from the minute they're born to about age 5. And when you sign your child up for school, you are handing over control. You're saying, it's okay, you can now be responsible for my child's education, which is perfectly fine, but be aware of that. And you can take back control of your child's education at any time. How do you take it back? You notify with a legal home education program. So in all the programs offered by the government, everything is school controlled except for home education. Home education is the only program you as a parent or caregiver can do whatever you want. Okay? I hope we're clear. Now, school in your living room, which is what for the most parents or 1 billion children in the world this spring were doing. They were not homeschooling. They were doing school, or there's different terms. I think the Alberta government calls it at-home learning. But what it means is it's government school controlled. And anything that's online through the government or a blended program like half classroom, half online, any print-based correspondence, and many forest schools are government school controlled. So imagine it as your child is the car. And until age 5, you're in the driver's seat. And then at age 5, you get out of the driver's seat and you get in the back seat. You're allowing the driver's seat to be controlled by a school or a teacher. Okay? Now, when you're home educating, you open the door to the car and you say, okay, I'm in the driver's seat. And actually, if you empower your children to do self-directed learning or unschooling, you're putting your child in the driver's seat and everybody else is in the back seat as support systems. Okay? So it's very clear, if you sign your child up for school, they'll have a teacher, they'll learn the 1,400 Alberta programs of study outcomes per grade, they'll probably be in that at-home classroom for about 5 hours a day. If you choose parent, legal home education, then you can have a whole wide range of options. Now, I know a lot of parents don't want to teach. I get that. Even though parents have the ability to teach their children up to about grade 8 without teachers' manuals, like you have the knowledge. After that, at age 13, a lot of children can self-teach, and a lot of them do self-directed learning, and their knowledge actually starts exceeding parents. Even before that, they do in the tech world. So, and then if you need it, you can hire tutors or put them on online classes. But until then, most parents have the ability to teach their children. So under home education, you can do all these options. You can do parent homeschooling. And that's what we traditionally think of when we think of homeschooling. That's, the parent teaches the child, gets a curriculum, learns the curriculum, then teaches the child. And that's fine. A lot of parents do that. That was not for me. I didn't want to do that. So I did something called unschooling. Now, also, parents work full-time, they work part-time, and a lot of them hire their childcare professional to facilitate their child's learning. So they could get nannies, they could hire just people to come in their home and do supervision, but also facilitate an educational program. And that person does a day-to-day operation of the home education program. Okay, so a lot of parents do that. Another thing parents do is they get together with other parents, and we're seeing that a lot right now, is saying, okay, we have 10 kids, who wants to be can we alternate teaching these kids? So that's what we call co-ops. So they can be informal, they can be a formal agreement. My kids did them in the mid-2000s, and we would hire a community center room. Nowadays, you can get libraries free of charge. You can book a library space once a week and take turns as parents teaching a certain aspect of a few core subjects. So that would be really, really nice. It gets kids together. They're small schools, and you can do a lot of social distancing in that type of activity. And those co-ops are only maybe 2 hours on a Monday afternoon. We did it for our teenagers through grade 11, grade 12, English, and social, and it was great. It provided social contact for the children, but not too much. It provided a discussion group. We watched movies, we read books, and it was really enjoyable for the parents too, just to see kids have fun and flex their debating skills. Now, you can also do self-directed unschooling, and I'll talk a little more about that later. And now, this spring and summer, a whole wide range of resources have popped up on the internet that are alternatives to the government school. So under home education, again, like I said, you don't have to teach. You can sign your child up for a micro school online. So one of these is called Galileo. I think I misspelled that. But so it's builds in accountability for your child, and it allows them to access an online teacher and to sign up for courses based on their interests or based on what you want to teach for particular grades. And those their rate per month is somewhere around the charge for preschool was, anywhere from $200 to $300 a month. But it gives kids somewhere to go. And it's a lot more flexible, a lot more fun than what they may have been used to in the spring. And lastly, there's a-la-carte courses. And the big one of that is OutSchool or Khan Academy. There's so many of these out there too. So you don't sign your child up for a school program like Galileo. You would just pay per course. So let's say your child's interested in coding. You sign them up for a coding course. They have a teacher over Zoom, and the teachers may not necessarily be certified teachers. They may be passionate members or business people in the community working in that field that are moonlighting, and they charge $10 to $15 for a 1-hour course, and your child's in the course with 8 other children who are all passionate about that topic. Now the teachers are vetted, but again, it's buyer beware because it's not a government school. They're not certified teachers, or they could be. A lot of teachers now are moonlighting for these online micro schools and a-la-carte courses because they can make some more money on the side. They can, especially in the spring, they had a lot more time in their hands. So those are some of the options that parents have now. And especially the last two, there are so many of those that are cropping up to meet the demand of parents who may not necessarily want to send their kids to school, but want to keep them busy other than watching, Animal Crossing or on the iPad. So students are borderless. They can learn from any course or resources anywhere in the world. And I think the future is proving qualifications, but again, you don't have to do that year by year. You can do it at the end of grade 12. And boundaries are less important. Now, under home education, you do not have to follow the Alberta curriculum. You can if you want, but keep in mind that all the school programs, online, blended, teacher-directed, print-based, have to follow the Alberta programs of study, and they have to cover 1,400 outcomes per grade. That's a lot of screen time for little children, okay? Under home education, you only have to follow 22 very broad targets that your child has to reach by age 20. You don't even have to follow them year by year. You can say this year, oh, we're taking a world trip. We're going camping. We're not doing math, and that's okay. Can't do that on school programs. So I hope that's clear to you what the differences is. Okay, so again, let's recap. So government schools, so blended, classroom, print, online, forest, Catholic, public, charter, private, all those schools, that is school controlled. You have no say. You do not teach. You do not get funding. Your child has to follow the 1,400 outcomes per grade. Homeschooling, either through adult teaching or childcare teachers or co-op teachers, you have all the flexibility in the world to do whatever you want on home education. Now, unschooling is empowering the child to direct their own learning. And what do children do? They play. So we let them play from ages 0 to 5. And then we say, okay, you can't play anymore for 6 hours a day. You have to go to this thing called school. And you have to learn the school wants you to learn. But what unschoolers do is they let their child play and learn what they want to learn. So they're driven by their own curiosity and self-directed needs. And what happens is they learn just as much as what kids learn in school. Maybe around high school or the latter year, grade 12 year, they might want to brush up on the diploma exam material because diploma exams only cover the grade 12 course. So children can brush that up, read the key, study for the exam, write the exams, and go on to post-secondary. No problem whatsoever. They learn everything they need to learn through play. They don't learn it through curriculum or textbooks or workbooks or online classes. They may, if that's what they choose. Now, so unschooling is just freedom to learn what they want to learn when they want to learn it. Okay, freedom, unschooling is not neglectful. It has the parent or an adult as a facilitator. It has lots of resources, and kids have lots of free time to explore their passions. What do kids do all day? When kids are at home, they gradually take ownership for their time. Many homeschoolers do not entertain their children. Not like summertime. I love it in June. All the media says, oh, what are you going to do to keep your kids busy this summer? You got to plan every 15 minutes or else they'll be bored. Well, we do not buy into that. And if our kids are bored, we say, okay, we have some chores you can do. And they very quickly find something to do. And oftentimes they get very creative and they're very busy. And all we do is make sure they clean up the mess. But we do not entertain our children all day. And that's a common myth of homeschooling. Okay, and there's lots of benefits of self-directed learning. I'm not going to talk about them now, but the one benefit, the one glaring one is the child is always ready for the material because they're taking in according to their curiosity. This is my little guy at 6, and his interests at that time were, as you can see, Zelda. But this is him 10 years later, and his interests at that time were learning more about the Vietnam War by actually, participating in a museum. So children learn a lot through self-directed learning, and the beauty is motivation is never a problem. You do not have power struggles. You don't have to fight with your kids to, oh, you have to listen to this Zoom meeting with your teacher, or no, you have to do these 2 pages of this workbook. Never any power struggles over that because a child learns what they're curious in. And if you let them loose, they will hit all the targets that a child in school hits. Okay, and I talked a lot about the online micro schools and a la carte courses. I think what I'm going to do is put together a list of the major ones, and I'll post them in Alberta Homeschooling Facebook group, just so you have an idea of what they look like. But until then, go check out OutSchool, look at their courses, check out Galileo. I just did their conference, and it was fantastic. The resources out there for all ages. I just want to stress, you will not mess up your kids. The absolute main things that kids need to know is how to read, how to write, and how to do arithmetic. everything else from science, social studies, health, art, drama, music, languages, they can get as they need it or as they're interested in. And a lot of those subjects are very spiral. So if they miss something in grade 3, they'll pick it up again in grade 6 or grade 9. If they miss it in grade 7, they'll pick it up again in grade 10, grade 12. And you know what? Even again in university. First year kids in university are taking classes on how to write a 5-paragraph essay. So don't worry. If you look at all those unschooled kids who do not do school, do not do home education for at least the first 10 grades, those kids do high school fine. In fact, they even do it better because they're not so burned out by years of schoolwork. They're ready for more formal study, and then they gear up for the years that count. And the grade 12 year is the one that counts. Okay, so you won't mess up your children. No matter what this year looks like, no matter what you choose, you will not mess up your children. Okay, I'll just tell you a little bit about our story. I have 5 kids. My oldest was in grade 1, grade 2, and the 2 boys, their learning needs were not met. So we pulled them out and started homeschooling. And by November, they stopped listening to me. We had tears. It was so painful. And slowly we slid into unschooling because we were homeschoolers that never got around to actual homeschooling. We didn't do bookwork. And then my role changed from being the teacher to the facilitator of their learning. And it was a much more fun role because I wasn't battling them over doing homework. This is my son who, we had battles over him doing his grade 2 mathematics. You can see he said, "I hate mathematics." And after letting it go for a good 8 years, his first formal math class that we put him in again was grade 8. And today he's an engineer. So somewhere along the line, he learned to love mathematics. So my kids self-directed, unschooled, played, did a self-directed high school and wrote 21 diploma exams. They got 78%. The provincial average is 65%. They got scholarships. 4 went into university, 3 graduated, and 1 is still there. And 1's going off to be a master's student this fall. So at that time, all my children's unschooled friends were going off to post-secondary at the same time they were. And I thought, this information needs to get out there because as you've seen the slide with all those negative confidence busting headlines that you are incapable of teaching your children because the celebrities find it so hard. This information needs to get out that kids can and do direct their own education. So I wrote a book. Okay, and of that book, I focused on 30 of my friends' kids. 10 were in STEM careers, 10 in humanities, and 10 in arts. And 22 have already graduated at Canadian universities and colleges. So let's just quickly go through, because I want to leave some time for your questions. Let's go through and say, I know you all have children with different temperaments, different personalities, different interests. What are the general best education options for different age groups? Let's look at that now. And I just love Dr. Thomas Armstrong. He wrote the book, Seven Ways of Intelligences or something like that. I forget the title, but he said human development research should inform educational practice. And I agree totally. It's all about brain development. So I don't know if this little movie will play. It didn't the last time I tried to do this, but let's see. Oh, here we go. Okay, these are neurons firing. These are dendrites reaching out to the axons reaching out to the dendrites and sending neurotransmitters across this synapse, which is this gap. Pretty cool, hey? This is what learning is about. So when children are born, babies are born with 100 billion of these brain cells. And everything from birth on to age 20, this is learning. This is what happens when children experience and acquire knowledge. And this works whether they're playing a video game or learning how to do a math problem. It all grows their brain cells. So you can see by age 7, they max out, and by age 15, the brain starts pruning those cells that have not been used lately. So if your child's in French immersion in age 7, and let's say they take French immersion off in age 8, let's say it's this year and you decide to home educate just for this year and they don't do French immersion. In a year, they will still recuperate a lot of their knowledge. But in 5 years, if they took a 5-year break from age 7 to 12, they would have lost most of it, right? So you lose it if you don't use it. That's how the brain works. Okay, and I just want to emphasize play grows brain connections just as much as workbooks, and children of all ages need more play. And I'm so happy to see children outside riding their bikes and playing hopscotch this spring and summer, because that's growing their brain just as much as being time in school. Okay, so let's just look. The brain grows from the bottom to the top and from the back to the front. So babies, this is what's most sensitive in their brain: the occipital lobe, the cerebellum, the brainstem. For toddlers, it's the temporal lobe. For preschoolers, it's the parietal lobe. And for elementary school agers, it's the frontal lobe. For teenagers and junior high, it's the prefrontal lobe that is most sensitive. Okay, so for babies, toddlers, they learn to walk during this stage, and those are things we don't teach. Those are things that are developmental appropriate. They learn it because their bodies are wired to learn it. We learned long ago that giving a baby walker does not speed along their learning to walk. In fact, it endangers them as they go hurtling down stairwells. So we don't advocate walkers anymore. And the same can be, and I'm going to talk about reading later, but same thing too, it's a developmental skill. So toddlers also learn to talk, and we don't teach them how to talk. Oftentimes toddlers get the words wrong, they get the pronoun wrong. And if you just keep modeling proper vocabulary, language, they pick up on it and get it. We don't actively have to teach. And we don't give them talking lessons. We don't give them talking workbooks. They learn it based on their environment. And many things children learn that way. So preschoolers is a really good stage where this part of the brain, this parietal lobe, allows them to think, ask questions. That's a really fun stage that kids learn really well through their play. Here's another graph that kind of shows children's self-control, their development of their executive function. And you can see from 0 to 3, children have very little self-control. But from 3 to age 6, they take their first big leap in self-control. So a 5-year-old in kindergarten, we don't recommend worksheets or any formal learning. It's play-based because, as you can see, they don't have that attention span or that ability to concentrate, and especially not online. Same with, and that's why mandatory school doesn't start till age 6, because children need a certain amount of self-control to pay attention and listen. And then you see the second stage of a big leap is from 13. And look at that big leap at 17. That's when a lot of children, unschoolers, have the self-control to buckle down and learn the workbooks that they need to go on to post-secondary. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So babies, toddlers, and preschoolers, they learn through play and they learn through their 5 senses. So best education option there, self-directed unschooling. Let them follow their interests, let them play through their toys, through everything in their environment. That's how they learn everything they need to know. They do not need worksheets. Oh yeah, and here's some unstructured play materials versus structured. For those first 5 years, these are the best because they're so open-ended. They can combine them and develop their creativity, and there's no particular age that they have to play with them. I remember my kids would play with blocks from age 2 to age 13. They still love playing with blocks and Lego. So best play materials are those unstructured ones, like that. This is kind of just a busy brain kit we brought along on outings rather than pull out the iPad. Even now, when I travel with my teenagers, I bring a pack of cards along for waiting, and guarantee they'll put down their phones and they'll join in on a rowdy game of cards. So it's nice. It builds conversations, gives them something to do, gets them away from screen time. Okay, more ways. Now, we recognize parents have to work, and how do you keep them busy? There's babysitting co-ops. You can hire a teen. There's lots of home education teams that would love to earn some money. I would suggest rotating toys. So kids have way too many toys that they don't play with any of them. So pack away 80% of those toys and rotate them. Bring them out, and they're just because due to their brain development, they're new to kids again. They haven't seen them for a month. They want to play with them again. And of course, ease up on screen time rules. I have a lot of play ideas, keeping my 5 kids going with play in my blog, my parenting blog. So just type in play ideas and you'll get lots of things to keep them busy. Okay, typical school age years. Now, remember, the sensitive part of the brain here is the frontal cortex, where they still are not thinking abstractly. They have to learn with things in their environment. They need logical, concrete, tangible things to learn about. So, for example, topics in that is the rock cycle, boats and buoyancy, wetlands, flight, writing letters, writing newspaper articles, things like that that are very real to them. But keep in mind that children this age still learn through their 5 senses, and they learn the best through experiential learning and play. So still at this stage, online learning is not the best for children to learn, okay? Another thing is, children at this age learn to read. Anywhere from age 4 to about age 10 is the normal range to learn to read. And it's a skill we don't teach. A lot of people think children go to school to learn how to read. But like toilet training, it's a natural developmental skill that children just acquire. They get it at a certain point in their development. And because it mostly happens when children are in school, we think that teachers teach it and that they learn to read because they're in school, which is not true. All the unschoolers learn to read, and they're not directly taught. Okay, and we live in a literate world. These were the ages my children learned to read. And the interesting part is they all learn to read at their own developmental schedule. And the latest one, the one who learned to read at 10, that's what he was reading a year later. You don't know, like toilet training, you don't know who trained early or who trained late because they all have the skill. Same with writing. For children to learn to write, they need to be passionate about something. So let them be passionate, let them write out. For example, if they want to do something, they want to walk with their friend to the Slurpee store, ask them to write you a paragraph on why this is a good idea at this time. And they will be put passion into their writing. So school age years, best education options here. I would suggest parent homeschooling, childcare homeschooling, co-op types homeschooling, self-directed or unschooling, the a-la-carte online courses, and maybe the government schools where they do outdoor programs. At this age, online learning is not the best learning. Even Alberta Education states that online learning should not begin before age 10, which is grade 5, because kids do not have the stamina to learn from a screen, and that's not the best way they learn. Okay, teenagers. This is when they start to think critically. They can think about abstract theories and thoughts, and although they are still learning through their 5 senses, which is very good, they're ready for paper-based work. So grade 7, age 13, yes, now they will sit down and concentrate. They can do workbooks, they can do school books, they can do online courses, whether they're government courses or whether they're procured from the internet. This is where they really come alive in terms of their critical thinking skills. Math is best taught through application to everyday problems. Here's an example I often talk about is we ordered a cheesecake for my daughter's birthday, and it's a half cheesecake because it's cheaper. And we got this cheesecake, and I kind of looked at it and I thought, that doesn't look like half a cheesecake to me. And and the kids, I gathered them around for a teaching moment, and I said, let's use pi to figure out if we got half a cheesecake. And that's what we did. And it was really good to teach them how to apply a math tool to a real life problem. And that's what you can do at home. Schools don't get cheesecakes ordered in, but you can apply it in all throughout the day in teaching moments. It's amazing. So I found, as a family of unschoolers, grade 8 was a pivotal bridge. Remember I said most parents have the ability to teach to grade 8. Most parents can help their children learn all these things, and they can learn it through play. They can learn about integers, understanding temperature and weather, least common factors by purchasing hot dog buns for hot dogs. Any life problem, they can learn all these things. These things too. Roman numerals, my kids learned about by reading Asterix and Obelix books, right? They can learn all these things. Ordered pairs through playing Battleship. The abstract concepts in math start beginning about 13, and that's when it's a good time that kids can start learning math on paper. So you don't have to worry if you're battling your children over worksheets and they're in grade 4. Let it go. Don't worry about it. They can learn when their brain is ready. And children, we've known this in the unschooling community, is that kids can learn 8 grades of math in 1 year. My kids did, all 5 of them. Different temperaments, different abilities. They all learned 8 grades of math in grade 8. Not because it's because they learn math through real life, and they learn the paper way in grade 8, and it's because their brain is ready. They got their abstract thinking skills. Okay, so there are way more to paperwork is better for teenagers. Absolutely. So if you're looking at best education options, then I would suggest, government schools, their online classes, fine. If you want to follow the Alberta programs of study. If you took your child out of school for the next 8 years until grade 8 and then put them in courses, they would do just fine. You could also continue with parent homeschooling, childcare homeschooling, co-op homeschooling. Again, a lot go on, self-directed unschooling through the high school years, and anything, the a-la-carte online courses would be good, and the micro schools would be good. So you have the most education options at teenagerhood. Okay, I think that's all I wanted to talk about. I like this one. a lot of parents are worried about screen time, and I'm just going to address it right here. What does the research say? Well, we don't have any good long-term studies. I work in healthcare, and I know until we get some meta-analysis on really good long-term studies, all we can say is build in moderation. So make sure your kids have exercise, make sure they have time off of screens before sleep so that they can go to sleep, and make sure that your whole family has tech-free times for both adults and kids to facilitate conversations. In families that don't have any toxic stress from adverse childhood experiences, no matter how much time they're on internet, on games, it is not an adverse effect and it's not an addiction. That's what the brain research shows. So healthy families, yeah, they're on screens a bit too much. Don't worry about it. Bottom line. And video games make a lot of skills. It still fires those neurons, and it helps children learn cooperation, commitment, teamwork, critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, and innovation. Lots of fabulous skills. Whether they do it in a school or video games, it grows the brain. Okay, so we come to the conclusion. Does learning ever stop? Never. It never stops. Absolutely not. You can't force your child to learn, and you absolutely can't stop a child from learning. There is no way they're going to stop learning this fall, no matter what you do. So don't worry, relax. Okay. All right. So I just want to end with this great poem. I love this poem. I tried to teach my child with words. They often passed him by unheard. I tried to teach my child with books. He only gave me puzzled looks. Despairingly, I turned aside. How can I teach this child? I cried. Into my hand, he placed the key. Come, he said, and play with me. So I hope you get a lot more play in this coming year. If you want, my book is available all over, chapters everywhere. And be sure, if you're thinking about doing more unschooling, self-directed learning, we have a group, a Facebook page called Alberta Unschooling Families. If you're worried about STEM, math learning, join our Unschooling STEM Facebook group, and there's ways to connect with me. So yeah, if you want to leave at this point, thank you for coming. I hope this was helpful. You have lots of choices. And if you want to stay, I'd be happy to answer any questions on homeschooling, the school programs, if I can answer them, those kinds of things. So feel free to put them in the chat box. One of the questions is, how did you decide to unschool versus traditional schooling? I pulled my kids out because one had a learning disability and was not getting help in grade 2. And the other grade 1er would go to school and not go back after lunch. It was such a battle to get him back to school after lunch. I thought, okay, I gotta do something different. And then when we were homeschooling, I tried to replicate school in our home, and it does not work unless you're a more authoritarian parent. I'm a non-punitive parent. That is my shtick. And I wasn't going to threaten my kids with treats or rewards if they would do the work. That was not my value system. So then that way we kind of just slid into play. We just played. That's what we did. Okay. So the question is it okay to unschool and then put your kids back after a year? Does the school accept them? Absolutely, yes. You can take this year off. You can go travel if you want, go camping. You can unschool the whole year. You can do whatever you want. You can homeschool, you can do any of those choices this year. And then next year, put them back in the school system if the kids are going back into a physical classroom. No problem whatsoever. The school will put them in the grade according to their age. So if you have a grade 2 this year, going into grade 3, you decide, we're going to unschool for grade 3. Great. Next year, goes into grade 4, does just fine. He will do just fine. Okay, question. I have a 12th grader. Can I successfully get him to graduation with homeschooling, or should I stick to government-controlled education like distance ed? Okay, grade 12 is the year that counts. Of all the grades, that's the year that counts. Definitely, if he's going on to post-secondary, he's going to have to write the diploma exams for the core subjects in grade 12. So English, science, math, social studies. I would suggest follow closely to the Alberta programs of study. What I would do is I would buy the keys. They cover everything that's on the diploma exam. So your child knows what the topics are. It's a really good brush up to understand what the topics. My kids, most homeschoolers love the key because it's like an exam prep tool. You can also sign them up for diploma prep things too, which you probably know. But again, where he learns chemistry or biology, like chemistry and biology is the same thing pretty well across Canada. So if he picked a book from the library on biology, high school biology, he'd pretty well hit all the targets. And then maybe just buy the key to see which of those targets are on our diploma exams. Okay. Now, you can also do that through home education. There's only 8 school authorities that offer that on home education. Go to our website, albertahomeschooling.ca, go to the high school tab. It explains how to do a self-directed high school. And that's what it is. It's self-designed. Your child would put in a course proposal, say they would study the 4 units in biology textbook. They would do the work, and then they'd put in a course summary. And then your homeschool board would give the marks and credits and report them to the transcript, the government transcript. Now that affords a lot more freedom than your child taking a government online course. Believe me, my kids did both. Bio 30 through a government school was about 45 assignments. At home, they just did 4 unit exams and a final exam. So a lot less work. Phys Ed 10 through a government school was 50 hours of writing and 75 hours of activity. Through self-directed home education, they did 124 hours of activity and 1 hour of writing up a course summary. Okay, so I hope that answers your question for the grade 12. Okay, another question. If we wanted to homeschool for the next year due to COVID and then return back to the school, what are the steps to re-register them for the next grade? No problem. Getting them back. So next summer, you sign them up at the school and say, my son's coming back. And they'll ask for the file from your homeschooling board, and then the file, your child's cumulative file, just keeps going school to school to school. And we do that all the time. We homeschoolers, we switch schools. I've been with 10 different school authorities. So my kids' files kind of went boop, 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 boop. But it's no problem, they can get back. The only problem I foresee would be French immersion, where there are certain entry points. So if you pulled them out in grade 4, you might not get them back in until the grade 7 entry point. That's the only thing I would worry about. Maybe ask your school on that one. What if we plan to put our kids back into school in a couple of years? Okay, if I haven't taught them fractions or whatever the curriculum is for grade 4, how are they going to succeed in future classes? A lot of what your children would have learned in school, they will learn. Most kids learn fractions on their own. They learn decimals on their own. They learn integers on their own. And if they don't know, they're going to pick it up real quick when they get into the classes. And remember, keep in mind, everybody this year is going to be a mishmash of this year. Nobody's going to hold it against your child. And everybody's going to be in different gaps of things whenever they get back into the system next year. We only took it 1 year at a time. I would say to my kids, what are we doing this year? Are we homeschooling? You guys going online? We're going to unschool? What are we doing? And you just take it year by year and based on your child's interests and temperament. They do not repeat the grade. The school system is like a conveyor belt. You pull them off the conveyor belt for a year, they go back on the next year in the next grade. They would never hold back your child. They would never make them repeat the grade. Yes, parents do worry they're going to set them up for a lifetime of being behind. But keep in mind the group of unschoolers who take 10 years off of school, go in high school, they're fine. Their brains are ready to pick up that information. So you can't mess them up. So do we not have to do any testing to prove they can go into the next grade? These are all wonderful questions that I don't even think that people are really thinking about. But yeah, absolutely no testing. None. No testing on home education whatsoever. Kids just go into the next grade. If you look at a typical school, a third of the students move away from that school during the year. Another third of students come into that school from somewhere else. They're not going to test those kids to make sure that they're in the proper grade. They just slot them in according to what age they are. No problem. Would you recommend hiring a tutor to supplement homeschooling or unschooling? If that's the way you go, or if that's the way you feel that would assure you more, absolutely hire a tutor, but it's not necessary. Unschooling is just trusting that kids are going to learn on their own. And if you unschool for a year, you will see how much your kids pick up. You really will if you observe them. If it makes you feel better to hire a tutor, go for it, but it's up to you. Absolutely. You're just taking a year out. Call it a sabbatical. What does their homeschool file include? Good question. I will pull up what a report looks like. If you just give me a minute. So, like I said, if you home educate, you're going to have 2 teacher visits a year. This is an example of the report of a final spring visit. So the teacher will come out and talk to your child and say, hey, what have you been doing? And have a cup of tea with you. And it's a really low key. So this would be for grade 9. So your teacher would just write, okay, how do you as a parent assess that your child's learning those 22 outcomes? So you can, on home ed, either follow the 1400 Alberta Programs of Study outcomes per grade or the 22 outcomes by age 20. I followed the 22 outcomes by age 20. So they write down what you used for assessment, and most of it is observation. I'd say, yes, I observed my son figuring out coordinates when we played Battleship, right? So that's all they write. This is 1 page. This is what goes into your child's Alberta education report. So when your child is signed up for kindergarten, they get a file, and every year report cards go in that file. Maybe they have special needs, and those reports, plans of special needs, your homeschooling reports, everything goes into this file, and it continues with your child through the school until the end of grade 12. Okay, so this is the report. And it's a legal document. It's signed by the certified teacher from the school authority. So it says to all those naysayer relatives that yes, homeschooling works, and yes, your child is learning, right? A teacher signed off on it. So look at this. They just write down what you tell them they have learned. So, or what they did. Maybe they read, they played games, those kinds of things, places you went to. So it's very, very low key. I think it's a lot easier than people worry about, for sure, I think. Okay, there's more questions here. So that's what their not a homeschool file, it's what their school file includes. Okay, homeschooling is realistic for full-time working parents, absolutely. The only problem is children are supposed to be supervised until age 10. Okay, so I found that hard. Babysitting was very hard. You know, so looking at co-ops, looking at childcare, you'd still need that kind of thing. Is there a curriculum to follow for parent-led, or do you figure that out on your own? When you sign up with a school authority, they will assign you the teacher to help you figure out curriculum, or you know, whatever your child's interests are, what parents like, they will assist you with curriculum. I can't do much about curriculum because we never used any, so I have no idea what's out there other than Lego and video games. But but for grade by grade, there's also curriculum on our website. So for example, let me show you this. May as well walk you through this. Under resources. So if you go to our tab under resources, this is what you need to find a school authority, okay? If you want to pull your kids out halfway through October, go here. This is school boards that will take you halfway through October. This is a video to show you how to fill out the notification form. More stuff. Okay, these are these are the 1,400 outcomes that children would learn if they're going to school. So let's look at grade 3 here. This is what they'd learn in grade 3. So you can follow this if you want. Let's say you want to do grade 3 science. You look at rocks and minerals, animal life cycles, hearing and sound, testing materials and designs, right? You can follow this if you want. You don't have to. Math is working with numbers from 0 to 1,000, comparing fractions that have the same denominators. So things you can do in a kitchen. You could do that. And then what we have is, these are sample plans. So let's say you want to homeschool grade 3. Oh, that doesn't open, does it? Darn. Okay. So these are following the 22 outcomes or the Alberta Programs of Study if you want, but it's very simple. This is what we did. For science, we did pet care, watch Magic School Bus videos, played Lego, Meccano, and Connects. Went to the Science Center, blah, 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 okay? Went to the museum for the rocks and minerals display in Calgary. That's how we covered it off. So super easy ed plans there. And then tutors, there's our tutor list, co-op teachers for hire. I gotta move this. I don't know where the conference is. Free Alberta curriculum, yay! Okay, so here's a giant list of micro schools, a la carte courses. Okay, so you can go there. Mostly in school, grades 1 to 3 is learning to read. So that grades 4 to 6 is reading to learn, okay? So there's not a whole lot of resources out there for grades 1 to 3, but for grades 4 to 9, there's all the Alberta curriculum here. So this is kind of what tells you, for example, grade 4, what kids need to know in language arts and math. Let's look at math. You can print these off, okay? There's all your lessons for grade 4 math. This is Alberta Education Curriculum. Okay, you can print them off. If you want them in a nice, neat binder, you got to pay $40 for them. But and it's all the key lessons. So everything that your child needs to learn in grade 4. Okay, so there you go. Oh, I think this is the teacher's key. Sorry, that's why it has the answers. The child's key, actual work doesn't have these, so. Anyways, so that is for grades 4 to 9. All right, so you can do that. And close that. That's grades 4 to 9. And then, as you can see, grade 9, it has all 4 cores. It has language arts, math, science, and social studies for grades 7, 8, 9. For grades 4 to grade 6, it's just math and language arts because, like I said, that's what's most important. When kids get to high school, then you want to get these key books for high school courses, and they tell you everything that's in those courses. Okay. Okay. Can you advise what the first steps are for people wanting to homeschool? You have your kids enrolled in in-school classes, okay? So first steps is you have to register with a school authority. So here's your first steps. So, okay, here's the contact list. These are all non-resident boards that are happy to take homeschoolers, except for Alberta Distance Learning. So at this point in time, it doesn't matter who you pick for home education because I don't think anybody's running non-essential activities at this point. And for homeschooling, it's non-essential activities. So what I would do to pick a board is maybe pick someone close to where you live that maybe next year they might be running programs and your child could attend some of them, field trips, activities, things like that. But for this year, just pick one, notify them, send in the home education notification form, and you're done. They will contact you and help you pick curriculum. Okay, so it's not that onerous. Don't worry about it. Don't overthink it. Here's some general guidelines in choosing a school authority. Here's some questions to ask. If you're looking at distance education, you don't have to put them in the public school. You can choose these for distance education too. And here's a handy thing on homeschooling other people's children. Okay, that's all you have to do. And then they will help you fill out the home education program plan. Absolutely, they will. So that's all you have to do for first steps. Okay, all righty. Okay, so if you're looking for that form, everything's on the Alberta Homeschooling website. Most of it's under First Steps or Resources. Okay. Oh, good. I'm glad this was more clear for you. And you want to unschool. Okay. Yes, I will put this in the Alberta Homeschooling Facebook group so that people can watch it again and your partners can watch it and your family and your friends can watch it. So absolutely, I will post it in there. Okay. Awesome. Well,